everyone, welcome back. Remember when you would sprint through the aisles of Blockbuster, pick out a gorgeous cartridge for the weekend and completely fail to beat it? Today, we are counting down 12 classic games we all rented but never finished. Starting at number 12, Zombies Ate My Neighbors on the SNES and Genesis was the ultimate weekend rental trap. Developed by LucasArts, this top-down co-op shooter dropped you into a B-movie horror paradise filled with chainsaw maniacs and giant mutant babies. The game looked like pure, light-hearted fun, but it secretly hid 48 massive, brutal levels. You spent Friday night tossing soda cans at vampires only for Sunday afternoon to dissolve into pure panic as you sprinted to save a pixelated cheerleader from a werewolf. By the time you realized you had to return the cartridge to Blockbuster in an hour, your spirit was completely broken. Coming in at number 11, Disney's Aladdin was a visual masterpiece that every single kid begged their parents to rent. Whether you played the gorgeous Capcom version on the SNES or the stunning hand-drawn Virgin Games version on the Sega Genesis, it felt like controlling an actual movie. But do not let the beautiful animations and catchy music fool you. The game was packing some serious old-school arcade cruelty. Most of us cruised through the first few levels feeling like a platforming god, right before slamming face first into the absolute nightmare that was the Cave of Wonders lava escape sequence. At number 10, The Lion King is a game that actively traumatized a generation of renters. Disney and Westwood Studios teamed up to create one of the most stunningly animated games on both systems, but they also cranked the difficulty up to a completely unhinged level. Rumor has it the developers deliberately made the second level, quote, "just can't wait to be king," brutally confusing so kids couldn't beat it over a single rental weekend. You spent 3 days trying to time double jumps off swinging monkeys, only to return the game on Monday with zero progress and a deep-seated hatred for pixelated ostriches. Sliding into number 9 is Turtles in Time on the SNES. This was the holy grail of beat-em-up rentals. The arcade port was absolutely flawless, featuring fast-paced action, incredible scaling graphics, and the legendary ability to throw foot soldiers directly into the screen. It was so incredibly fun that you and a friend would happily blow through your entire supply of weekend snacks trying to beat it. The problem? Without endless quarters, the console version's limited continues meant Shredder would happily wipe the floor with your team right at the finish line, leaving you totally defeated. Landing at number 8 is Jurassic Park on the SNES. Renting this game in 1993 felt like holding pure magic. It dropped you onto Isla Nublar with a top-down perspective. But the real, mind-blowing gimmick happened when you walked inside buildings and the game suddenly shifted into a first-person 3D maze shooter. It felt incredibly futuristic, but it had one fatal, unforgivable flaw. The cartridge had absolutely no battery save feature or password system. If you wanted to see the ending, you literally had to leave your Super Nintendo running for 48 hours straight and pray nobody tripped over the power cord. At number 7, Vectorman on the Sega Genesis was rented by every kid trying to prove their console could compete with Donkey Kong Country. It utilized pre-rendered 3D models made of glowing green spheres, and it looked absolutely unbelievable in motion. The gameplay was slick, fast, and satisfying, but the late game levels turned into a grueling gauntlet of precision platforming and relentless boss fights. Most kids rented it for the flashy graphics, jammed out to the incredible electronic soundtrack for a few hours, and then quietly gave up when the difficulty spiked into the stratosphere. Coming in at number 6 is Super Star Wars on the SNES. This game took the classic film and transformed it into a brutal, high-speed run-and-gun platformer. The graphics were jaw-dropping, especially during the Mode 7 Landspeeder levels. But the combat was absolutely unforgiving. Luke Skywalker moved like he drank 20 cups of coffee, and every single Java, Sandcrawler, and Womp Rat on Tatooine was actively out for blood. Most rentals ended with the player aggressively mashing the restart button on the very first desert stage, wondering why a simple movie tie-in was harder than actual college exams. Sliding into number 5 is Earthworm Jim. Created by Shiny Entertainment, this game was the absolute pinnacle of 90s attitude and surreal humor. The animation was incredibly fluid, the weapon variety was wild, and you could literally launch a cow into outer space. It was a mandatory rental for anyone trying to look cool. But the actual level design was a psychological torture device. Between the terrifying underwater pod escape missions and the relentless puppy escort levels, most of us spent our rental weekend pulling our hair out rather than actually enjoying the brilliant cartoon art style. At number 4, Battletoads and Double Dragon, the ultimate team-up was the crossover event of the century for arcade fans. Combining the gritty martial arts of Double Dragon with the wacky, high-impact violence of Battletoads seemed like a guaranteed win for a Friday night sleepover. Sadly, it also inherited the legendary controller snapping difficulty of the Rare development team. While it was slightly more forgiving than the original standalone Battletoads game, it still featured enough brutal speeder bike sections and trial and error hazards to ensure that no 10-year-old was ever finishing it in 48 hours. Taking the number 3 spot is Contra Hard Course on the Sega Genesis. If you rented this thinking it would be a fun, casual side-scrolling shooter, you were in for a very rude awakening. This game is a relentless, non-stop boss rush that pushes the Genesis hardware and your central nervous system to their absolute limits. The pixel art explosions are magnificent and the action never slows down for a single second. But the American version stripped out the health bar entirely, meaning one single hit resulted in instant death. It was a weekend of pure, unadulterated digital punishment. Our runner-up at number 2 is Ghouls and Ghosts on the Sega Genesis. This legendary arcade port was famous for its incredible dark fantasy visuals, haunting soundtrack, and the hilarious mechanic of your heroic knight getting blown out of his armor and running around in his underwear. It was also an absolute masterclass in game developer cruelty. Not only did the enemies spawn infinitely from every direction, but if you actually managed to reach the final boss, the game would casually inform you that it was a fake ending and force you to play the entire nightmare over again from the very beginning. And taking our number 1 spot is ActRaiser on the SNES. This absolute masterpiece completely defied genres by combining side-scrolling hack-and-slash action with a full-blown overhead city-building simulator. 1 minute you were a god slashing through monsters with magnificent pixel art animations, and the next you were playing Cupid, guiding townspeople and fighting off plagues. It was completely mesmerizing, but it was far too deep and complex to absorb over a frantic 48-hour rental period. It remains the ultimate example of a game we all loved renting, but never actually saw the credits roll on. Those late fees might be long gone, but the emotional damage of never seeing those credits roll is forever. Drop a comment with the rental game that broke your childhood spirit, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.